middle name, Brevity.
That's a good look.
Okay, was
Glasses
this
and the-
agenda changed, or is it this?
That was, I just included that, I didn't include a page that shows what the tabs are, so that's just the tabs
I got
for you.
it, I got it. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Opportunity first to hear about the weather.
Is the recording on, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's hear again about Old Man Winter.
I'd like to do that. When I was here last, are we on here? I guess
Yeah, it's on.
I don't need a microphone. When I was here last, we were talking about 80 degrees the following week. Well, we had 80 degrees. And we might not see 80 degrees again until June. But I think, you know, the outlook is not all that bleak. We've been very fortunate that we haven't had hardly any snow here again this winter. That's 2 years in a row.
Right.
So I'm looking for a spring to be just around the corner. But before that, we might see a few more snow flurries. Nothing to worry about as far as the roads are concerned, but we do need the precipitation, so it's a good time to put your fertilizer and grass seed down. The best time to put fertilizer down is if we do have a heavy wet snow. Now, I'm not forecasting that, but we might see some snow in the air again next week, maybe even on Saturday morning. So with that, I'm going to give you an optimistic outlook, you know, for April and May. And hello, Gene and Bill.
How you doing?
Look what the wind blew in here.
Yeah.
And we're not going to have any more terrible windstorms like we did on March the 2nd. The outlook for the summer, warmer than normal, but also wetter than normal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Very good, very good. So when do I put in the bean seeds? When's the last frost? Are we done with frost?
26th,
No, oh
May
no.
26th.
Okay.
Wait till about the 15th of May.
Other comments?
Any comments?
Anybody else have a comment? Lynn,
Oh, yes.
this is, now's the hour.
Lynn Valley, Oak Street. The subject is Tuesday Recycle Day. Matt has, in the last month, put out a few emails asking for people to flatten their boxes. And I see no evidence of that anywhere when I'm traveling around Farms Edition. And I would like us to look into some way that people could be encouraged to comply with this so that the waste management doesn't have equipment breakdowns because the boxes are collapsed. Ideas, take a short video picture with the audio. And that way you could just put the address with a picture of the boxes. Where that little smart device phone is going to come from, I don't know, but that can be worked out. One thing that Richard said may not work is leaving the boxes on the street on collection day if they're not folded flat, but that has to be explored with waste management. But I think of a picture evidence with the address, and then however the council feels they would want to approach the individual owners who are not complying, somewhere or another,
Okay,
okay?
thank you.
And maybe some forewarning that this is coming down the pike. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to announce that we have a limit on comments, 10-minute limit?
Any other comments? Yes, Lauren?
I'm Lauren Beal, Delfield Street. I'm assuming that this will be a part of the building administrator's report, but I would like to hear an update on the status of the grade issue at the Thornapple property that you had mentioned a couple of meetings ago. I know that there had been some kind of a hold on permits and, okay, so maybe when it comes, if you could just.
Lauren, wrong person. That's Dennis King.
I'm sorry, I was at the
Oh, there's no,
that's
our
not
building administrator's
Lowline.
not here.
He's not here tonight,
Yeah.
Is
but
he going to be
This is
providing?
the neighbor on Summer.
Nice to meet you.
He may look
Yeah.
like that.
He always sits over there. You look so poised
Is
and ready
Doug's
to
not
jump
coming
up.
He's not coming tonight.
Dean, thank you.
You're welcome, happy to clarify anytime.
But I know that, some of the council members weren't present for that conversation, and so if there could be a refresh on that
Sure.
component. Thank
Yep.
you very much.
Any other comments?
Sign it,
I
sign it.
have to leave tomorrow morning for a funeral in Vermont.
Oh, well, enjoy the weather.
Oh, late.
Dennis?
Hi, Dennis King from Summit Avenue. I'd like to piggyback on what, is it Bill? Lynn, pardon me, said there about recycling. I've noticed the same thing. Would it be appropriate or inappropriate if we made a suggestion that it may turn it into a exercise game for children to jump up and down on the boxes? I mean,
Another good idea.
we're stretching the rubber band on this, or even give them box cutters to encourage them to cut the boxes up. I know, I'm just throwing it out there. If it's got good parts or bad parts, that's the way it goes. But I really, I've got a feeling it's just not on, it may
No,
not.
just hold it close to your lips.
You're good, Dennis.
How's that?
That's
working?
fine.
It's perfect.
All right. The issue I want to talk about is an old issue, and it's been prior to Matt being in position here. But it's the speeding and the disregard for stopping between Thornapple on the east side and Thornapple on the west side on Summit Avenue. It just continues, and since I'm retired and I'm out inside with my dog
Right.
in the yard and everything, I see these things. And there's some people that just, I don't know what they're thinking, probably not at all. They literally don't even touch their brakes, they just roll right on through. And there's one resident right over in Rollingwood that I can describe the car to a T, and it doesn't matter what direction he runs in. Stop sign? What stop sign? I don't see a stop sign.
Are you talking about the stop sign coming up Thornapple onto Summit that they pay no attention?
Exactly, and the one from Summit that leads from Leland down toward Taylor.
Okay.
It is just completely disregarded by a lot of people.
Good.
Is it
Do you-
turns or going through?
Pardon?
Is it turns?
Both.
Because it's not, you kind of have to dog leg through it a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you have like a approximate time when this happens? We can ask our police to,
I can honestly say it happens any time of the day.
anytime.
It
So-
doesn't matter.
So you don't see a particular pattern where if we put the cops out there at specific
You would
time?
probably have a higher percentage of it happening in the morning and then again in the afternoon, but I do see
Right.
it during the course of the day.
Okay.
And, we have new residents on Summit Avenue where there is 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 very young children, no taller than this. And, I'm sure that the parents would like to have the opportunity for those kids to play somewhere else other than their yard. One parent does have the little plastic mannequin that they put out at the edge of their driveway, but I don't know whether people see that or not.
What about the signs, drive like your kids lived here?
I think that's one of them.
Okay.
And I don't think it matters to the people. They're focused on something other than that.
I think what we can do is that Matt can talk to the police on when they're here and see if they can schedule times
Yes.
and issue some tickets, might slow it down.
If, you probably have a sense of time of day, there was a range, like, in the mornings and the afternoons when this guy's commuting? Do you think it's a commuter?
Honestly, no, I know this person in particular is not a commuter. I do know that he lives over on Leland.
Okay.
Or I should say, over on,
Tina?
one of the streets over on the other side, the north side.
I gave you
I gave, yes, I gave one to Richard. Oh,
But yeah, if they get into somebody's pocket, I think that makes an impact.
Thank you.
I hate to make it sound so harsh, but there's gotta be something done to give a signal out there for people to take, and hey, this is a community over here, and it's not here for you to fly through.
Right. No, we'll follow up on it, Dennis, and if Matt talks to the people, when they're scheduled, he can get them up there,
Okay, that's great.
and we'll do.
I can
And-
also, as I can also, as Joe Coutreau is moving sort of up the village with these traffic counters, since we're gonna do a traffic speed count on Thornapple as is, when he's up there, he can take a look and see if he has any recommendations as well.
Okay, thank you.
And also, the parking. I gave Matt a diagram with my suggestions, and I hope this is acknowledged and looked at as far as suggestions to enhance what is already there because of the just simple nature of where some people park and it blocks up the intersection, especially it'll affect the school buses.
Okay.
So,
The intersection at Thornapple and Summit.
The west side of Thornapple,
Right, okay.
okay? Because the school
West.
bus comes up Thornapple on the east side, it goes south on Summit, then it makes the right turn onto Thornapple. And then in the evening, it'll make a return and it'll come back the exact opposite way.
And that there are cars that are parked that make it difficult.
Every once in a while, they're parked right in the position where it definitely affects the swing of that bus.
So I think we could look at that for a no parking
Mhm.
sign, because
Yep.
Joe's working on those things
Ye-
now. Our
yes,
traffic-
yeah.
That's
had-
included in my diagram.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay,
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Keith?
You might get complaints about me on Turner Lane, but it would be for going too slow.
I've been behind you.
Bill?
Bill Catherwood, Shepherd Street. I think I could talk loud enough without the microphone. Two things. I noticed, and thank you very much, Matt, that you've got the speed counters out on Shepherd Street so that we could do the collection there. Are you planning on doing it on Cummings Lane also? Because that's the worst cut-through street in the village, and I know that we've had higher counts on that street than any other street in the village in the past.
I saw that you had emailed the other day about that. It wasn't initially on our list. I suppose, you
It's
know.
always been the worst.
Yeah, it would be useful
Okay.
to
Great.
do that.
And then the other thing is, I noticed on the agenda that I picked up when I came in, that we have at 8:10 scheduled public comments on the resolution on election rules and procedures. That was not on the agenda that you sent out. So I'm puzzled that.
It's on the agenda.
I called it up on my phone, and this was the one that you sent out by email. It's not on that. So I'm puzzled that this is on the agenda that's handed out when it wasn't on the agenda that you distributed.
I'll have to double check that. But
So,
On the-
my question is, it's not on my phone. So
Right.
if it hasn't been distributed, how can we discuss that at a public meeting?
Well, this is also a time, this is not going to be acted on tonight. It has to have another public hearing.
But
Yet
this count
it-
is one when you didn't tell anyone about it.
Now, we've already had one with the introduction because of the
Introduced, and
timing
then it was
between when it was introduced and when it can be resolved. There are going to end up being 3 public hearings instead of 2 that there usually are.
But can this count as one of those if you didn't?
We
tell
don't,
anyone about it?
it's an extra one.
It's a bonus.
It's a bonus.
No, so if nobody knew about it, it's okay.
Well, we did announce at the last meeting. It was introduced at the last meeting, and I think you'll be happy with it. It's the exact same one that was introduced
Okay,
before.
I'm just saying,
with
you didn't
two
tell
edits.
people about it when you sent the agenda out.
okay. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Jesus, I pulled that agenda up today and
It's
I'm
not on
sure.
I just pulled it up.
Oh, Matt's gonna check.
Well, and also no
That's
harming
right.
of
This
foul.
is the one, is it on a different, I pulled it up on the public one.
The constant contact agenda that was sent out is not on it.
When, okay, I just printed it off, I have it. I printed it off at home, I don't understand, well, we'll work on that. I understand your concern, about having a public hearing and it not be announced, but there is still another opportunity at the next meeting. Normally, we would have 2 public hearings on ordinances.
Is it there?
And so,
I just pulled it up
Ordinarily,
and
we have
it's
one.
it's
This is a
it's
bonus.
there on the phone.
It's not on mine either.
What are you pulling it up on?
This one that you sent today.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I understand that. The email itself. Yes. Okay. If you click the link, it is on the link there. But I understand. Yes. I apologize for that.
so what it's in the link, but it didn't show up on
Yeah.
just
I
the email.
I forgot to update it in the body of the actual email. So no, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
We
But there are still 2 public hearings.
2 other ones.
so
Tonight is not a public hearing. The public hearing will be at the next meeting. This is a bonus comment period.
Public comments.
Oh, okay, so public comments as opposed to a public hearing.
Secret comments.
Secret comments, like I
well,
got-
they'll go on the record, so
Right.
they're not
Yeah.
secret.
Okay.
It's on the record.
Anybody else have any comments? Moving on, committee updates? Or is anyone doing a
I
committee?
am doing the committee updates, I'm sorry. So I am doing updates from 2 committees tonight, actually. Marty could not be here, and so I am standing in for the Elections Committee. We've been things are on schedule. As you know, the nominations period is open. We've been trying to do our best to spread the word among the village that we welcome candidates. I am a little bit confused now about this hearing because one of the things that we wanted to thank the council for adopting the updated election rules and procedures that were
Lauren, I'm
recommended.
sorry, I think you have to actually pick up the microphone, and as much as you don't wanna use it, I think if you use it, it does away with this background.
Okay,
There you go.
all right.
Hey, excellent.
So maybe before I launch in, we could just have a clarification a bit about this process so that everybody understands exactly what's going on with the election rules and procedures.
They were adopted on an emergency basis by the council so that the nomination period could open as recommended by the committee.
I see.
But then in order to fulfill the waiting periods and all of that, it was also introduced and will be voted on and adopted.
And so just to clarify what the emergency bit was, we wanted to have a longer period of, because there was a snafu with the mail last year, and we wanted to be able to have, I think it was 15 extra days in the period, and the way that it was written, appeared to require us to have only, I think, a 30-day period or something, and so we requested to have 45 days so that we could more easily execute what it was that we needed to execute on schedule for that was the emergency request that we made so that we could stay on schedule and in compliance with the law. So we wanted to thank you, and you particularly, Ron, for helping us, keep that moving to pace. So far, things are moving along as scheduled. We've been having, very good public meetings as the election council. Really eager to try and increase the participation in the process across the village. So far, we have received only one official nomination, which is from Arthur Alexander, and we are seeking more candidates. And as the committee, we are very serious about not soliciting any specific individual candidates, but continue to encourage people just to step up broadly. And we have adopted language that we've agreed upon that basically says, if you feel like running, you should go for it, broadly. If someone comes up to us and says, should I run? We are not, we are encouraging everyone to put their names on the ballot. 5 p.m. on April 10th is the deadline for the candidate statements and for the ethics forms. We have a great new ethics form, I think, from the ethics committee that basically is a more elaborated conflict of interest form.
Can you tell us something about that?
The
Ethics
conflict of
form?
interest form?
Yeah, what's on something like that?
It is a form that basically asks people to disclose any transactions that they have had with other members of the village or any pending building permits that they are seeking, or, you know, basically just to be able to disclose very clearly any potential conflicts of interest. We are seeking further clarification from the ethics committee about
Are they on
what
the
we think
website?
you know, how that will be shared out. We think we need to be directed by the ethics committee about the way to do that, but I think what we imagine is that that is something that would essentially be on file, that people could go and look at prior to the candidates forum.
It may well be on the website, but at any rate, there are some questions that were raised by the elections committee about redoing the form in order that people would, all staff and council members would sign saying that through a series of questions that there isn't a conflict of interest.
Or at least that they would disclose anything
If there
that might
was.
be perceived to be a conflict of
Right.
And
interest.
this is when they nominate them.
Correct, that's right. So, you know, as part of the nominations process, I believe the ethics committee requested, and again, the ethics and the elections committee are two separate committees, and so, you know, this is something.
And they'll report on that. They're meeting later this month, so they will have a report on what the form they're proposing, because they are making changes in a form that we've already signed this previous year. That form, is it on the webpage?
I think so, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay,
Again, I
you
think-
can look for it.
And we're seeking some clarification
Well, I
from
think
the
it's really
ethics committee.
important for people who are interested in being nominated or nominating themselves to know what it is that they need to include along with the nomination.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, good. So
As
you'll
soon
put
as-
it on the website.
And also, as soon as someone expresses interest, we would share with
You'll
them.
put it on the website so the entire community can see what's being asked of any candidates, right?
I think,
Okay,
again,
good.
this
That's
is
cool.
the ethics,
I'm
it's
great.
up to the ethics
Fabulous.
committee. The other thing that I'm reporting on is that the election committee members have agreed that we would be happy to take an oath of office. We're happy to do that at any point, and just wanted to share
Right.
back that we are absolutely happy to do that. Okay, putting on a different hat. The Community Engagement Committee report. We had a great meeting. We debriefed the wine and cookie party, which was really fun, and we had great participation. And I think we felt like it was an instant classic. See, it didn't work, Annie?
That's okay. But it was, you know what? It was a great party.
All right, there you go.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Good,
Yeah.
great. And I
It
think,
was-
Thank you, Jean.
Yes, yes.
Enough comments, thank you.
So we had a lot of people come out for that, and I think we had a great meeting. I think we had about 10 community members that came out. You know, we've got sort of a burgeoning street captain program. We've been talking about how to add a little bit more fun to the election day sidewalk party. We're talking about having chalk and maybe bubbles, and, you know, just keeping it fun. There was the suggestion of having an Arbor Day event, tentatively April 29th, that would allow us to renew our Tree City USA status. And I think there was a very nice idea of doing a tree planting in honor of Dan Gardner. And so, you know, who I think many of you knew, and who was a village arborist, and seems like a very appropriate way of honoring one of our past community members. So we are also going to be sending out a survey. I think I'll probably be sending it out tonight or tomorrow, just to basically gauge interest, get some feedback on the events we've had so far. We've been talking about things like a movie night in Shepherd Park, or, you know, other kinds of fun ideas, you know, intergenerational kickball game, or, you know, just things to get people enjoying being in the same community together. So that will be going out soon, and I hope you all will answer the survey and encourage your neighbors to do so as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other committee?
I mean, me see. Well, there's also.
Action on the minutes. The minutes were circulated, they've been approved. A motion to accept the minutes.
I will move to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. The public comments weren't sent out, so we can't have public comments. Although if somebody did see the public comments and would like to take this opportunity to talk about them, you're welcome to do that.
Would you like me to summarize
Yes.
what it is? So, at the last meeting, the council adopted on an emergency basis, as Matt said, the amended election rules and procedures. An emergency action is only effective for 60 days. So at the same time, the council introduced the exact same policy, which would serve as the permanent resolution. And the public hearing on the permanent resolution will be at the next meeting, the April meeting. But we put it on the agenda for today as well, in case there were any comments in the interim. And again, it's the exact same rules and procedures that were adopted on an emergency basis, but there are two proposed additions. And these are additions that came from comments from residents from the last meeting. One comment, I think it was from Mr. Carell, that committee members should complete an oath of office. So we've added a statement, committee members shall complete an oath on a form provided by the village council. I've prepared the form oath as well, and the election committee has looked at it and they like it. And the other addition comes on page 4, and that's where we've added a couple sentences regarding records. And it says, all election records, including nominations, absentee ballot requests, and ballots, shall be maintained at the village office in accordance with the village's state-approved document retention schedule. Ballots shall be securely stored until such time as they may be destroyed in accordance with the document retention schedule. So,
Ron, offhand, you know what that schedule would be?
yes, I believe it's ballots are destroyed in 6 months, and all election records are pretty much destroyed at the same time. And at first blush, you may say, gosh, that's a pretty short deadline. Most of our deadlines are 1 year or longer. But in my experience, there's actually a legislative policy to have a short limit, because if there is to be a challenge, it should be raised quickly before the new council comes in and takes actions on this or that.
And the results are retained permanently at archives, but the ballots are,
Are
as you
thrown
said.
out.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Any questions on that?
Can we pretend it's a public hearing, and I'll tell you, I think you did a great job on these changes? Thank you. Okay.
Financial matters,
Okay.
treasurer's report.
Financial matters. Today we introduce our budget for the coming year. There's actually not a lot to report except one big item. We're reducing the property tax back to a level, actually a little bit below the level that it was before it was raised after the Great Recession. At that time, it was $0.008 per $100 of assessed value. It was raised to around what it is today. It's gone up and down a little bit over the years according to formula, to 0.047, so 0.008 to 0.047. We're now going to bring it down to 0.005. Now let me give you some idea of what that means. If you've seen the document I prepared, for $1 million house of assessed value in Martin's edition, the overall property tax is roughly $11,500. How much of that comes from the village? Any guesses? Out of the 11,500, less than 500.
$80.
It used to be 80, back in the old days. It went up to 457 now. That's the 0.0457. Take your assessed value, divide by 100, multiply by 0.0457, and you get $457. The bulk of it, let me just read you the difference where your property taxes go. State out of $1 million, of the 11,500 or so, 1,120 goes to the state, $10,129 goes to the county. Village of Martin's addition, as we've had it this past year, is $472. And then there's these assessments from the water and sewer. I don't know how they're assessed because it's not a tax rate, but it comes out to about $50. It comes out to about $125. We are proposing that the Martin's addition rate go from 472 back down to 50. Now you can say, why not all the way to 0? And there's a logistical reason why not, because if we have a tax on the books, it's relatively easy to increase the tax if we need to, as we did have to do so after the recession when our income tax revenues fell by 60%. We had a tax on the books. It took a council meeting, a supermajority to raise the tax, and that occurred. If you don't have a tax at all, and I don't think there's any municipality in the state that does not have a tax. If you don't have a tax, you have to go through a whole, another set of procedures to get one, and it's much more difficult. So we thought 0.005, $50 for the average $1 million house was on the books. It's not going to be a burden. You get $420 for $1 million house in your bank account next year. And so we have money in the bank, and our income tax is back beyond what it was before the recession. So we're in pretty good shape there. So that's the property tax reduction. We've been waiting. We wanted to wait last year till after the roads were repaved, our lights went in, till we knew what our expenses were going to be. We now have that in hand, and I think we're in safe grounds to reduce the tax. My wife, just at dinner, she says, well, shouldn't you be keeping more in there just in case? So I said, just in case we can raise it. They're on the books. It takes 3 out of 5 votes, 3 out of 5, I think, to raise it. Right, for is a 4 out of 5 to raise taxes. It's a super majority.
I believe it's just simple majority.
Just a simple majority?
But you have to have
A full quorum.
right,
Right.
a special public hearing.
Okay, right.
Notice in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And
So, other items to look at in what's been happening to the budget, and actually not much. It's pretty routine. Most of the adjustments that are in the publication here are simply recognizing costs that turn out to be a little bit more. You know, telephone charges are up, other costs are down. A few that look big, I cited a few. One is the GIS, the Geographic Information System. We bumped up this year by a large amount because we have a new contract. There's several years of data that has to be input. We had to increase this year's budget by a lot. Next year, we're going back to an ordinary maintenance budget. So it looks like a steep cut. It's not. It's going kind of back to normal. This year was extraordinary. Another one was the same thing on village signs. We had an inventory of, what's that?
It sounds like it's getting some
Feedback?
yeah. Yeah.
We did an inventory of our village signs, and our traffic engineer, Joe Cutro, found out there's some should be replaced, some that should be cleaned, some are fine, but that will be another $10,000 to clean, replace, and repair. That will be this year. Next year, that $10,000 disappears. So it looks like we have another big cut, just going back to normal. We did have one discretionary item. We're increasing the community events by one event, $5,000 budgeted. And your survey of what kind of event people want is just right in time. We will be budgeting for that, and we're looking forward to see what the community is looking forward to. So one other item is that we have had a designated fund for capital projects. Every year, over the last several years, we have tended to put $100,000 or so out of our excess into a designated fund because we know we have very lumpy capital expenditures for roads that don't get repaved every year, streetlights that don't go in every year. But if we keep putting in a little bit every year, when we have those big expenditures, the money will be there. That money has now almost been depleted, and when we finish the repaving and the sidewalks after the next utility round is completed, will be close to zero. So I'm suggesting that, again, we replenish that fund for whatever is coming up in the future. So I'm suggesting we put in another $300,000 from the money we have in the bank from our undesignated funds for possible future repaving, utility work, storm cleanups. If we have any more windstorms with lots of trees coming down, it will be recover a cleanup from that. And so I'm going to suggest that we move from our undesignated funds to the designated funds, $300,000. So that's it.
What about-
Most of it is pretty routine.
Can we move 500,000?
We could move, yeah, we could move more. We have roughly undesignated funds of $2.3 million in the bank. Don't tell the county about it.
Okay, so do we need a motion to do that, Ron, to move the 300,000
Yes.
into the designated account?
Yes.
Okay, so 500,000 is good. We have spent on just the road repaving over 800,000.
Right.
So if we're looking to our future, the utilities are yet to come through. We may get more utility work in the future. We're talking about other things like cleaning up the right-of-way, doing some plantings and so on in the right-of-way, beautify the village, so all that will take money. So 500,000, we have the money in the bank,
Right.
so we can designate it.
Okay, so we need a motion to designate 500,000 to move 500,000 from the undesignated to a designated fund.
I just want to get clarification. So this is when in the proposed FY19 budget we have 500,000 for designated for streets and sidewalks,
That's already there.
and that's already there.
And
Right.
some
But-
of that
but-
is already.
And then we want another
Right, another
500,000
Some of that we
for
already know.
other.
Right.
Right, we already know we have committed to spend.
Okay,
Right.
it's been, you
Yes, I will
move,
move for that, to move 500,000 into designated.
second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Now, we also have to adopt the budget, don't we?
We introduce it tonight.
Introduce it, okay.
Right,
And there were other budget amendments
Right,
to
well, we'll have to
FY18
Right, we'll have to, that will be separate.
that have to, yeah.
Okay.
so are we ready
To
to,
introduce the budget,
Yeah.
an ordinance to adopt the budget?
yeah.
We need a motion to introduce ordinance 318-1, which is the ordinance to adopt the budget, and also a motion or the same motion to adopt resolution 318-2 regarding the tax rates.
Okay, I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now,
Okay, now there are approximately three items where we have to raise the budget for the current year. We don't, if the budget goes down, if we're spending less than planned, we don't have to do anything.
That's true, yeah.
The village ordinance requires that we cannot spend monies that have not been budgeted for. And so a few items we have to, one, storage rental costs have gone up from $3,500 to $4,000. So how much do we need there?
So the monthly rental recently increased from $257 to $296 per month. So currently we have budgeted $3,500. So
Right.
we need to raise it to $4,000 for the.
Okay, so that's
rest
one
of-
item. Another item is,
can you give the number?
Yes.
3,500 to 4,000.
No, the account
Oh, the
number.
account number. Oh.
5055 storage rental, and so it is small, but there's a little plus mark next to it that indicates that it needs amending.
Okay, the next item is telephone with the FiOS optical fiber. Telephone will go also from 3,500 to 4,000. What's the budget item on that?
The same, basically the same sort of story. So
Okay.
our monthly rate went from $270 to $310. So to make sure that we cover that over the fiscal year, just add another $500 into that to make sure we cover it.
Okay. Another, police, because there's an extra pay period in the year. We have to increase the police by $1,000.
In that number,
That
or is
is
that professional?
5240.
Okay, police, and we're introduced another 1,000,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, a bigger item is the street maintenance account for the signs that I have mentioned. The street signs, $10,000 from 15,000 to 25,000. One time, this will be a one-time payment, and then next year, it goes back to where it was. So, clean, repair, and new signs, $10,000.
So are we adding 10,000?
Adding 10,000. Street maintenance, what's the account number?
5324.
And finally, tree replacement, and Matt, you're gonna have to explain this.
Yeah, so Paul Wolf had a billing error, so he actually charged us for something. He didn't charge us for something last year and submitted a bill for it. So
And how much?
That's $6,000.
Yeah.
So we have to increment that by 6,000, again, a one-time charge.
And is it possible in those categories, this will increase the total bottom line?
Well,
Unless
no, there are decrements in here that we haven't talked about.
Okay, are
There's a
you
number of
gonna
items going
reduce?
down.
Okay.
I don't know,
Enough to carry, to
Let's just
cover
see.
this? Do you know
Well-
offhand what the total number is for the increases? The total of the
that we just
increases?
selected.
Yeah, so I've got
Yeah.
16,000, 17,500, but I'm missing one,
Okay, trees, 6,000,
right?
street maintenance, 10,000,
Right,
police, 1,000,
right,
telephone, 500, storage rental, 500.
okay. So that's 1,000, 2,000, 12,000, $18,000 increase.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our building review and permit, we're expecting to go down by 10,000.
Our build, in income or in
No,
expense?
in expense.
Okay,
We're not getting as many big projects.
so let's take,
That's 10,
so we'll take that off.
right. Accounting and auditing dropped by 3.
Okay,
I think that's about it.
Street cleaning
Oh.
was street cleaning was lowered from 20,000 to 15,000.
so that
As well.
gives us another 5,
Another
and do you know what that is? That's 18,000.
And then leaf vacuuming was also reduced from 15,000 to 12,000.
Snow removal.
3,000.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, there's
And then
plenty of money.
snow removal.
21,000.
Yeah, we have enough to cover.
Well, that's the question, is that with those changes, we actually will adjust a budget down, given the increases and the decreases. The
Right.
bottom line is not going to be higher.
Right.
And there seems to be a reason for that, is better for us, right?
Right.
And so do we just approve these adjustments, or are they
Yeah.
just that?
You need to approve by motion to reappropriate the money,
Okay,
as Arthur said. State law requires supermajority for this reappropriation as well, so all of you must vote in favor.
okay, so do you want to move, Arthur,
Yes,
that
I
we
will move
accept?
to accept the higher amounts in the designated areas, adding up to, how much?
18,000.
$18,000.
And
the
also,
monies are being appropriated from those category line items which are gonna be underspent.
So there is
Right.
sufficient monies of underrunning to cover the
Okay.
18,000.
Okay. So there's a motion to just make those adjustments.
Yes.
I
So,
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Supermajority.
Supermajority.
Aye, okay. So we've already accepted the resolutions, right? Both the ordinance for budget and the ordinance, the resolution for levying taxes.
Yes, those have both been introduced and they're subject to a public hearing, which will be at the annual meeting in May.
Okay,
And so the draft we have on the resolution kept the tax rate the same, but we lowered it to 0.005.
Right. Let me just add for the record, my very first council meeting that I attended was the one that raised the property tax, and this room was full of very excited people at the time. Now that we're lowering it, where is everybody
Well,
coming
if
to
you knew
think
what
it?
you were doing, we might have a bigger crowd. I got a question. What about the other tax rates? What about utility tax rates? What about personal property tax? And what's about commercial property tax rate?
There-
What are you doing that in this new budget?
They're remaining the same.
Okay, you ought to say that. For the record, you ought to reflect that they are remaining
Gene, I don't
unchanged.
know how we have managed without you.
Well, you've done a great job.
Thank you.
But
And-
people ought to know that your utility property tax rates are
Right.
$1.45.
Right, that all,
Right?
I appreciate that
Matt, look,
consistency.
you're looking puzzled, Matt. Is it in your resolution?
No.
It needs to be in the resolution because the state's gonna have to charge.
Oh,
It is, it is.
utility isn't.
Okay.
No, it's in the
But
resolution.
we don't know because we don't have a copy of
No.
Oh,
it. Okay, good.
You didn't share.
Yeah.
oh, well, okay. It was online.
But we'll see it, okay? Okay, good. I just
Okay.
wanna make
Wasn't
sure
where?
we're still charging those tax rates to utilities and to personal property tax.
Yes, yes.
Good.
Yes, yes. I went over the building administrator's report, and did
Matt,
you
can we
have
compare
one
notes?
to give?
What did Arthur just do too?
Matt?
Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Just making sure I have the notes.
So, in reference to Lauren's question, is that what you were?
No, all I'm asking is that Doug's not here tonight. Did he prepare a report that you're giving?
Oh, I can comment on his report. There isn't, and part of the reason he's coming is because there really isn't any new big projects or developments that he needed to comment on.
Right.
The one thing is that the council may want to consider setting a date for the variance hearing,
Oh, that's
without discussing the merits or considering the specifics of the case itself.
So,
Mark Schaefer did email me to say that the week of May 14th did not work for him because his daughter's having a baby in California. So that's about the only week that he said it didn't work
Well,
for him.
okay, so should we try, or do you want to do it in conjunction with the April council meeting? Do you want to try and set
When
a
is the
date?
April council meeting?
It's April, I don't know.
19th, I believe.
19th, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to do it on a night different than the
Different.
Probably
council
a
meeting?
different night, isn't it?
What do you think?
I just think it may be long and
Extended,
involved,
yeah.
and it might
Yeah, I
be
think
better
we
to
should
have
do
it
it
on a
separately.
separate night.
Yeah, probably gonna be about a 2-hour hearing.
Yeah.
At a minimum.
Okay,
Yeah.
People will still come out, trust me.
okay, so, I'll send around some dates.
Okay.
Do you want to do it on a Thursday? Is there a particular night that's better for,
I'm gonna be away the first half of April,
through the 15th?
roughly, yeah.
Okay, so after the 15th. Okay, and is there,
No, I'm fine. Just, thank you,
Yeah.
send it around the
Okay.
dates.
Yeah.
okay. And now the manager's report.
Now the manager's report. So as you can see, we had some new furniture arrive and was installed February 27th. So the next step will be spackling the walls and making any repairs on the walls and new paint as needed, and fixing these lights so that people aren't in the dark over there.
Like the furniture.
I think it's functional and is nice.
It works for you?
Yeah, I feel very
You
happy
don't,
with it.
right.
How do you feel? Dean?
Oh, look at that, look at
I
that.
have 3 times the space.
Yeah, wow.
I can actually use my computer without getting a neck ache because it's in a position where I need it to be. And it's not falling apart.
You don't have bricks supporting anything.
Do you use the stand-up
Yes.
up thing?
Yes.
Oh, that is neat. I want
Yeah.
Young Frankenstein?
Go ahead, Matt.
Just sort of skipping to the highlights. The directory, we finished uploading all the new information that we've received, so our next step will be to reach out to folks that we didn't get anything from and try to get their updated information or at least confirm that what we have is correct. I'm also working with, actually on Gene's suggestion, emailed the state of Maryland to get the voter roll for Martin's Editions to to cross reference. Contracts. So we have a contract with CNA. They just sent it back to me today for Ron to review a couple of legal things that they wanted to tweak in that legal language in the contract, but moving ahead with that.
Matt, who is that? CNA?
CNA, they're out of...
There's an opportunity at the end of the meeting for resident comments, and until then, could we
I
please
just want
just
to
have the
answer my
meeting?
question. Who is
Well,
CNA?
you can wait till the end of the meeting.
So...
That was what we used to do, Gene, remember?
No,
You
a
didn't
simple-
like all
a
those
simple question like
interruptions.
this would be answered.
Go ahead, Ron.
CNA.
So,
Go
so
ahead.
they're a local out of I think Potomac, Maryland.
What do they do?
They're an engineering firm.
Okay, Matt, you can move
Right.
ahead. Thank you.
So the other contract we're working on is waste management. So the contract comes up in at the end of it runs through the end of June. So we're reaching out to 7 different trash companies. A couple of whom we've reached out to before, a couple of other ones that came suggested by some of the other municipalities. We signed an agreement with the company to help design the new Martin's Edition signs. Still working with WSSC. I started to draft a timeline and letter, so I don't know if the council wanted me to kind of go ahead with this to give them basically a timeline that illustrates how much and for how long we've been waiting for it, how many times it's been pushed back to maybe
It would be
hopefully.
useful
Um,
to give them.
Okay, then I'll work on that because they apparently still do not have a contractor selected,
Right.
and it seems like nothing's been done in a year. So
Going back to the village signs, is there a target date for that?
they're just waiting for a check from us,
Mhm.
and then they'll deliver proofs.
Mhm.
So they I think they said their turnaround could be 4 weeks, I think is what they said. So yeah, it's just a matter of us getting the proofs and then picking one, and we paid for installation from them, so they'd be the ones doing the installation as well.
So they have the check.
Yes,
And so
it got mailed this week. yeah,
Okay,
so.
and
yeah.
so the proofs, okay.
Yep.
Oh, is there, you know, you have other streets that may affect traffic.
Oh.
There's markings on Bradley Boulevard that look like utility markings. Do you know whether that's gonna be torn up?
Yes, I believe that is part of it. That Andy Harney has been talking with them to try and figure out if they're actually going to be required to tear up the roads or if they're going to be able to do it without actually having to dig underneath there. But
Is that Bradley between Brookville and Connecticut?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
There were also some workers on our side of Bradley,
Oh.
On our Bradley?
marking up and
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yikes.
Oh, actually, I think I do know what that is. At the intersection there. So that I actually got an email from Doug today, and that was from State Highway saying that they are hopefully within the next weeks going to redo that intersection to stop it from ponding.
okay.
So that's what that is.
Until they dig it up again.
Right.
Yeah,
So yeah, so
we can only do it twice a year.
yeah, really. I sort of alluded to this before, but we have some traffic studies underway. We have the raw numbers for Quincy Street. This week we were collecting data on Shepherd. Plan was to do Thornapple, but it sounds like Cummings would also make sense to get comparisons to try to get an understanding of
Where the traffic
where it's coming from and any increases. Frustrated with State Highway on this intersection at Brookville and Taylor. They sent an email this week that said they're still in winter. I don't remember the exact phrase that they used, but essentially that because it's still winter and cold, they're not starting on any of their spring projects until April. So they're sending it over to their financing people, but apparently it's still very high on their list, but not high enough that they can't start until April.
Will that, I wonder, do you have an idea how that's gonna work? Will that close that intersection while they work on it, or it's yet to be determined?
Yet to be determined. My guess is that they will put somebody to help traffic flow, and it would be one way while they do it, rather than to fully close it. So
It's gonna be fun then.
Yeah.
maybe it'll get people off of Brookville and push them
Right,
to
right.
to Connecticut. Those are the big items on there. We had our bulk pickup. We survived the high winds without really very minimal village damage. There were a couple of private trees that went down, and so Paul Wolf did do some help with private residents, but in terms of village, I think one tree did fall on. Was it on Raymond?
Right across,
Yeah,
across
yeah.
the street. Yeah.
So,
It was
but
a
we
private street, but it closed down the public.
yes,
Private tree.
yes.
Closed the street.
It was good or bad timing, I guess, depending on which way you want to look at it. Because Paul had just been there, came back to the office, and as soon as he got here, I got a call that the tree had just fell. So, fortunately, Mike Connolly had his chainsaw, so Paul was able to chop it up on the spot, and the road was cleared for traffic. So that's it for the manager report.
Great. Resident comments.
It's 8:30 too, it's too late, is it?
Is that your comment?
No, my comment, Matt, would you please tell me what those letters meant and what it was for?
CNA.
CNA, what's it
Ooh.
for? What?
You know what? I don't.
No, but I mean, what are you doing with CNA?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying what does CNA stand for, and
No,
I think it's
what are
like maybe
they
they're
doing for the village?
sure. So they are doing the
Jane and Abel.
basically. There we go. Essentially the same things that we had A. Morton Thomas do in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're the people doing the survey work, the GIS work.
Exactly.
That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
Well, that was the other thing I wanted to ask Arthur is, what about county revenue sharing? Where's that coming in, and what's going on with it? 'Cause
There
I
are
remember a lot of the
negotiations.
beef the county had with us was there were years where they paid us the county revenue sharing money based upon what we generated out of our own community
Right.
with our own property tax rate. So there was a sort of
That,
a give and take where we didn't want
Right.
to lower the property tax rate because it meant we would get less for the county for county revenue sharing. So where does that program
remember
stand
during,
right now?
remember when they really cut back on all that stuff?
Yeah, right.
All those formulas went
And
up.
then they, instead of using the formula, they went, the formula was what our property taxes were, we were charging our people. What are they doing now?
It seems that there's a formula, I don't know what the formula is.
Has
It is
anybody
not.
been associated with the negotiations with the county council? I know they're going
No, the
underway now.
Maryland Municipal League
Right.
has been
Yeah,
pushing that.
I've been going to the meetings with some of the other municipal leaders here that then.
Just so long as we're not
Yeah.
shooting ourselves in the foot.
No,
It's
well,
money.
the amounts that we get from that are relatively
It's about
small.
$20,000.
Yeah, in total, yeah.
Yeah, I think the general idea actually from the municipalities here was not to push back even if they did decide to pull back some of that money, because we're so much more dependent on the income tax.
Right.
So if the county decided to say, sure, we'll put more in that fund if we take away from the income tax, that was not.
But the county can't take away from the income tax because that's state-based. So the county's got nothing to do with income tax.
They
What we
are
don't wanna
lobbying
do is
with the state.
lose the
They're-
county
yeah,
Well, the
reimburse-
county is lobbying with the state to give them more control over it.
Right,
Again,
they want to
income
lower
tax.
Yeah, the
those
income tax.
percentages.
They want to do it where it's
Ooh, that's
the,
really scary.
Ron.
Yeah, that's-
Ron,
yeah.
are
That's
you,
why
have you been
they
involved
don't
in this
wanna
at all? Or no.
Make a big fuss
Okay.
over it.
It's because they want to change the language to
In the state constitution, it's 17%, right?
is it,
It's 17%.
17.
Yeah. The county wants some of that.
They
Yeah, I
well
bet
they
they
want
do.
they want to change the language that it somehow references it as a rebate as opposed to just us getting that. So when you start to talk about it in terms of a rebate, that might change the nature of it down the line, or sort
So
of.
are you just trying to be quiet about the revenue sharing so as not to stir the pot over
Yeah.
income tax?
That was what the preference was generally of the Chevy Chase municipalities. That's not really the direction that the Maryland
Okay.
the Montgomery County chapter went.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some, Rockville, for example, depends a lot more on these items
And
than
Tacoma
than
Park.
the smaller.
Well, they have the police departments that
Right.
Yeah.
reimburse.
Right, so they're really dependent on
But so
that.
you've thought about that and we're just sort of holding tight, yeah?
Yeah.
I think the tentative plan right now is to have some type of sit down with the county council. I think they were targeting maybe October or November.
What about
Oh.
census, Matt?
You made it
heard
right on
anything from
time.
the census?
Closing
We're
comments.
just about
Yeah,
to, just about there.
so basically, the big one that came through most recently with the census was just verification that the boundaries of Martin's Additions hadn't changed. So they haven't really started up with the
Started to hit you with the stick?
right,
Okay.
yeah.
Keith?
Now that Tiffany's here, I think we adjourn the meeting.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Oh, wait, we have one more
Dennis
comment.
has a question.
Wait,
Oh,
Matt, just for general knowledge, are we required to take an issue or seek a new contract for refuge removal at a certain period of time?
Yes. So we signed a 3-year contract with Waste Management in July of 2015. So we could very well contract with Waste Management again. It's just that we have no terms moving forward after June. So we just need to get a contract in place.
So it's to our advantage to go ahead and go out and solicit for?
Well, we're required
So we're
to, we required to solicit
Oh, we
for
are required.
Yeah,
amounts
above
over. We changed that.
above $10,000. I think it's in the charter that we were obligated to competitively bid. So usually usually what we've done is an RFP where we set the very basic parameters of the work that we want done and sort of let the experts say how they would fix our problem. In this case, we know when we want our trash picked up, how often, et cetera, et cetera. So we sort of set the terms and say, how much would it cost for you to provide this for us?
I hope we get that back.
Waste management?
Yeah, I mean, I dealt with logistical things at the agency, and these guys, to me, perform with no hiccups.
Oh, good.
I've never-
I have one question on that. On the garbage truck, they have these huge crushers. Why can't they crush cardboard boxes?
That was one of the questions that I had for them.
Yeah. Do they have an
because
answer?
I don't know.
They
Well,
didn't
they
call
haven't got
back.
back to me. They
Oh.
didn't get back to me yet. But yeah, that was logistically one of my questions. Is does breaking down the cardboard boxes, does that just aid the pickup guys because it's cumbersome to pick them up, or does it actually cause or have the potential to cause some malfunctions in the equipment itself? And
Okay.
it's not clear to me.
Okay, good.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Thank
Okay,
you.
any other comments? Meeting adjourned. Pardon?
Motion to adjourn.
Well, okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion to, I move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.